بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. It's been literally ages since I did any video on my YouTube, and I'm really sorry, but I get easily carried away with anything that is not relevant, so let me get straight to the point. Today, inshallah, I want to share with you my story of how I became a Muslim. I am aware that I did upload it a few years ago, and I rewatched it today, and it's really embarrassing, by the way. I feel, first of all, at the time, I still hadn't figured out my place, so it's very, I feel I don't come across as very confident, and I'm very slow with my words, and I'm searching for words, etc. I had just converted at the time. Also, I feel it's not elaborate at all. I think that's also because I was still on shaky grounds with my own self. So I feel now, I've been Muslim 7 years, and because you guys are always asking me to do a new and updated version of my story, inshallah today is that day, and I'm so proud of myself for finally doing it. So here goes. I'm Estonian. I'm born and raised in Estonia. And those of you who don't know what is Estonia, it is a Baltic country. It's very tiny. We're only 1.3 million people, and the Muslim percentage, I believe, is roughly around 0.04. So now there's of course way more converts, but back in the day when I converted, I didn't know anyone who was Muslim. So my entire journey starts when I am 14, but just to give you a rough background story, I was raised with no religion whatsoever. My parents never talked to me about life before birth or life after death or any afterlife or any beliefs or anything, and that's also because they don't necessarily practice anything as well. And I truly believe that you can live your entire life in Estonia without ever thinking about God and never questioning your existence, or it's just not something that comes up. And the majority of the people in the country, they don't believe in any higher power. Some might be superstitious or spiritual, but not necessarily religious. No, it's not common to meet somebody who is religious. Even our grandparents, grandparents, it's just not there. So around the age of 14, me and my mom, we started traveling, and it was the first time in my life that I came across people of faith, it wasn't something I necessarily processed right away, but it was the first time, and it was very odd because my whole life I am somewhat brought to believe that people who have faith are kind of people without a backbone, weak people. They're just like someone you feel sorry for or something like that, which is really absurd. I realized that these people, they believe and they're normal people. So for me, I was like, something doesn't add up, like I don't get it. I didn't think much of it, but suddenly my circle of people changed a little bit depending on who I would hang out with, the people who I would meet. Then we would add each other later on like whatever, MySpace or High Five, or we had something called Orkut. And that slowly started changing my set of mind, my thoughts a little bit, until one day, I believe now I'm around 16 years old. At one point, like, Egypt became the most easiest, accessible, cheapest destination to travel to, and we realized we'd been to all the resorts for so many times, and we decided to go to Cairo. And in Cairo, instead of paying for a hotel, we found it's cheaper to actually rent an apartment or a studio or something, and we have more space and more freedom. So we rented an apartment in a place called Rehab, and me and my mom were always obsessed with getting tanned and having darker skin. So I was always really sad that I'm really fair. So anytime I would always be the first girl at the beach and the last one to leave. And I had a really great, I had a like very fake tan on myself all the time. So we started going to a club over there in Rahab. It was just like, it has not a club like for dancing, a club like, you know, tennis and swimming pools and gyms, etc. So we started going over there, and they had something called Ladies' Days, which for me, it made life a lot easier, because as a single girl in the Middle East, you would kind of get unwanted attention. So for me, I was like, oh, Ladies' Days, yay! I can feel like a lot more free and comfortable roaming around rather than uncomfortable. So one day I went without my mom, and I was just taking a tan in my bikini, and then next to me there were two other girls from Germany, and they were taking a tan as well. So we started chatting, and we became like, we really hit it off. It was Elizabeth and Annalise. I don't know if you guys remember me, but you're actually a part of my story, and I don't think you know that. So we hit it off, we started chatting and everything, and it turned out that they are German converts. It was the first time in my life that I heard about converts. I'm like, what is convert? In my mind, Islam was just something distant, something for Arabs, something in the Middle East, something you need to keep away from me because it ain't for a white girl like me in Estonia, you know? And so I was like, okay, fine. And they just were talking about their life before, and then how they found like true meaning in Islam. And I found that very interesting. That was it. I didn't think much of it. And then the ladies' time finished, and we're getting dressed, and they cover up all of themselves, and they cover up like really loosey clothes and hijab and everything. And especially with this girl Elizabeth, we hit it off really good, and she invited me over to her place, and I went. I've always been like that. I'm very not spontaneous. I'm not spontaneous. I decide something in the moment, and if I'm convinced, I just go ahead with it, and I don't second guess it. So I went to her house, and she pulled on the entire prayer outfit, and I was like, okay, this is the day I'm going to die. So actually I was really shocked. So because she's like this gorgeous woman, and suddenly I see her doing all of these things. So it was really interesting for me, and kind of it felt okay to take information from her because she's somebody who I could relate to. And she just gave me some children books about Islam, which I was like, okay, fine, and I took them. So that was it. I went back to my place, and a few days later I traveled back to Estonia. Then in the airport, another key person in my story, and Felicia. I don't think you also know you're a part of my story, but if you're watching, I hope you remember me. So we were in the Cairo airport, and we are on our way back, and we're flying with Czech Airlines, and I have a transit, and she also has a transit. Then she stood in front of me in the line. So of course I'm really nosy, and I'm like, oh, what you doing? What's your name? How are you? And I see she's holding like an Arabic book, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, actually, my boyfriend's Muslim, and I just want to know what he believes. And in my mind, I was like, okay, that's very like open-minded of you. So she said, I just want to find out what he believes in. And so instead of fighting against something I know nothing about, I decided to learn the Quran, and I've learned the alphabet by now, and I'm slowly trying to read it. For me, I was like, what? And since we had time in our hands, I told her, can you please teach it to me as well? So actually we had like a 5-hour transit, I think, and she taught me the entire alphabet at the time. And I think I still have that paper, by the way, of like alif and everything, and how it comes in the beginning, and how it's in the middle, and how it's in the end. And so I took that paper and I went my own way. At the time, I'm 16 or 17, I'm not sure. And I just went back home and I snoozed. I didn't think about it again. I hid those children books under my bed, and I would just keep them there, like so my parents don't get a heart attack and think I'm going crazy or something. I would just put the children's books there. I just gazed at them, and I was like, okay, that's nice, and whatever. I continued with school. I lived my life, and but then somehow it couldn't shake me. Like somehow these girls, they put questions in my mind that I'd never thought about before, like where do I come from, where am I going, what's the purpose of life, If I'm just going to be like food for worms, why do I ever get up from the couch? Or why do I make an effort? Or there were these questions that they would just spin around in my mind, and somehow over the course of time I developed an understanding that it does make sense that there's a higher creator. But I never felt the need to have a religion. I never had that I never felt like I have to label myself. I think a year went by or so, and then I couldn't shake that feeling that, no, like, this can't be it. Like, you know, I looked around me and I would think, and I'm very surprised that I was like this, by the way. I'm a young teenage girl at the time, so like, subhanallah. And I'm like, this can't be it. So I started slowly looking into religions. My best friend at the time, she converted to Christianity, so that was something on my radar. But I never fully understood the concept of Jesus. I didn't understand, how come I don't have to pray to Adam? And then I thought maybe it's my lack of knowledge. Like, I'm not convinced because I don't know enough. So I thought, okay, I should study it, right? Where to get the righteous knowledge, where to get authentic knowledge. That was always the issue, because whatever you Google, just like garbage comes up. But then it didn't answer my questions. For me personally, I am not saying anything against Christians, but for me, it never answered any of my questions. Rather, I always felt more insecure, and I felt I have more questions, and I was even more confused. And I was like, Matthew who? And Luke who? And there's only a translation, and there's no original, and there's so many versions, and then the Trinity. And it just, for me personally, it didn't add up. And the same thing with Judaism. And every other religion that I ever saw out there believed in so many gods, and I didn't feel that that's for me. I felt like there has to be this one creator, and I'm convinced that I just need to know. And honestly, like, believe it or not, when Christianity didn't work out for me, and I was really bummed out. I was like, this was my chance, and now it's gone. And I wanted to believe. Now I don't have a religion. I don't have anything else out there. And like, I never actually seriously thought about Islam as looking at it as something I could convert to. And you know, like, it's really weird to say that now, but at the time I felt like Christianity would be such an easy way out and such an easy answer to all my questions. Like, yes, I would have to change, but not drastically. I could still eat the same way and dress the same way, and I would have found my path, but I can go to church like once a week. And that was a very naive way of thinking, but for me it just seemed to be like the last piece of the puzzle, and it seemed like life would have been so much easier if it could have just ended with that. Like, I found Christianity and that's it. My parents would have still been shocked. It's still taboo to convert to anything. Even if you convert to Judaism or Christianity or whatnot, anything, it would still be something weird that your family would be like, you crazy? So I remember one day in the end of high school, somehow on Google it came up that there's a small apartment in Estonia that has something to do with Muslims or something. So I asked my mom, like, can you drive me there? I just want to check it out. Like, what is this? And my mom was like so scared, because when I walked in, all like women in black were entering, and we'd never seen anything like that in Estonia. We'd never seen a woman with covered hair in Estonia before. So I went in. And that was honestly like actually an experience that put me off. The moment I entered, they put on a hijab on me, and I had no idea, what is that? It was very, very strange. I don't agree with this kind of approach. But anyway, it was what it is. And at the time, there was only a small apartment that they would rent out for Jumu'ah every Friday for prayers, and there would be a small class. In Estonia, there's a small sect of Muslims called the Tataris. They originate from Russia. So their first language is Russian, which I can understand to a certain degree, but I cannot study religion in it, and I'm not fluent in it. And there was one girl, Amina, who spoke Estonian as well. So throughout the entire lecture, she would translate things to me, and I saw it actually pissed everyone else off a little bit, because they couldn't focus on what was being said, because someone was always like... But I did have a notebook, and I had a pencil, and I was very prepared. And I remember that was the day I learned the first thing ever that I actually knew about Islam, which was the hadith that if you see something wrong happening, you should forbid it with your hands, so by your actions. And if you cannot, then with your words. And if you cannot, then forbid it in your heart. And that's actually the first thing I ever learned about Islam, which is now a nice memory. But I wasn't captivated by this experience. They gave me some pamphlets and printouts because at the time there were no books in Estonian. So I took those papers and everything and I hid them under my bed. And so I kept them there again for a while. And every now and then I would read them and look into them. And you know, now try to think of yourself as a non-Muslim who has never read any religious books. So all the Muslims who are looking at this, you know we have Quran and Hadith and Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi and all of these things and verses in the Quran, etc. And we number them. So when I opened those books, I had no idea how to read them. And I was so confused. The books were like a quote and like thy, thouest, thy, Tirmidhi 7722, book 5, Baqarah 7742, colon, quote, another quote, two words, like, I was like, huh? I didn't know how to read that thing. And I think that's something that doesn't occur to any Muslim writer who writes these books, because if you've never seen something like that, you have no idea what's going on. So I put all those books aside and I felt my only chance to study this faith is if someone tells me. And I'm like, who's going to tell me? I don't know a single Estonian Muslim who will tell me or explain to me. And in the internet, everything was garbage, like I said. Everything I found was websites trying to bring Islam down, books about forbidden love and like honor murders and everything like that. So it was hard to find authentic knowledge. So I kind of kept it. But there was one book, A Brief Illustrative Guide to Understanding Islam. It was in English and that was fairly easy to read. And actually in time, now if I look at myself in retrospect, if I would talk to other people, I would defend the point of view of Islam. But if someone would have ever asked me, are you Muslim? I'll be like, are you out of your mind? The first time I ever opened the Quran, believe it or not, I had a sticky note and I wrote down everything I didn't like. I graduated high school and I decided to take a gap year because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And in the course of that gap year, I actually started getting more into studies of religion, slowly. So now, now it's been years that I'm into this topic. But everything I ever studied and the journey I went through, it was all me. I never told my parents, I never told my friends. It's something that's not, I don't think you would find a lot of people's sympathy. Maybe now a little bit more, but back then, like, no, I never even thought about sharing it with anyone. I was still stuck in that same place. I had belief in God and I felt like, okay, He knows I believe in Him. That should be good enough. I shouldn't need a religion to label myself. But in time, like I said, it wasn't enough. I felt like if I'm here, then I should probably do something. And I didn't know what that something was. So I was on the lookout for that something. I started actually subconsciously believing in what Islam teaches, but I would never admit to myself that I was Muslim or even that I believed in Islam. So I started this kind of like cat-mouse game with my own self. Like I would believe, but I would convince myself that I don't. So I was actually looking for something wrong with it to convince myself that this is not it, because it's terrifying. I just kept somehow stumbling onto information that was all about comparative religion. And Islam did make the most sense, but then still I would deny it because it was just scary. I was scared. When I still wasn't a believer, I remember somebody asking me that, okay, let's pretend that in the end God's not real and it's not there. So the believing person is asking me, what will I have lost? Nothing. I was always aiming to be a better person. I always tried harder, I tried better, and I had God by my side. And what will you have lost? Nothing. But on the other side, do you dare to even imagine if God is real? What will happen in the end? What's going to happen to me? I'm good. What's going to happen to you? If you had all the signs and you ignored them. You are one tiny girl from Estonia. Do you have the courage to take that responsibility of deciding that no, there is no higher power, there is no God, and this is not my path? And I remember that scared the heck out of me. And this was something that really motivated me. I was always in the back of my mind. I was like, what if there's a 0.01% that I'm not right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not clever enough. I don't have a bachelor's, master's, PhD. I don't have anything. Do I have the courage of saying that no, this is not it? So that was something that really motivated me and pushed me to try harder and go stronger. One day online, I was just looking for ways to study Arabic, and I found out that actually an Islamic center had opened up in Estonia, and there was going to be classes for Arabic, and those classes were free. I'd never seen anything free in my life before, so obviously I was like, no, I need a spot in this class, I need to take this class. So automatically I signed up, and the teacher of the Arabic class was actually a convert who had studied Arabic and done her master's degree on it in Sorbonne in France. So she was actually the only person qualified to teach Arabic and to teach something within the scopes of Islam in Estonia. But I was not signing myself up for an Islamic class, I was signing myself up for an Arabic class. So I did go to that Arabic class, but she automatically signed me up to the Islamic class as well. And I was like, hey girl, no. But then I was like, why wouldn't I take it? I'm already on this quest, might as well. It's not gonna hurt. But I was so scared to go to that mosque or Islamic center. I don't know why. I find that a lot of the converts who message me, they're also really, really scared to enter the mosque. And I don't know why that is, but it's just what it is. Okay. So I went, and it was the first time in my life I entered that classroom, and it was like 20 women exactly like me. Everyone had the same questions, like, where do I come from? Where do I go? What's my purpose in life? And I'd never seen that before, especially Estonian. So these girls actually became my friends for the next 2 years, my closest group of friends. And there was a girl as young as 15, and there was a woman who was like 55. And it was so diverse, but everyone united and connected by the exact same thing. So this was just mind-blowing. And it was the first time in a really long time I felt like I belonged somewhere. And the teacher, like, mashallah, she was amazing. I think a large part of my journey is because she was teaching as well as she did, and she really inspires me as a person, as a Muslim. So we sat down, and she printed for us a book that we binded together ourselves. It was one part Estonian, one part how to pronounce it in Estonian, and one part the Arabic, and then a lot of tafsir in the bottom. So we sat down and we started with the Fatiha, and she taught it in a really good way. Like, she opened up everything to the last tiny detail, like Bismillah, bi ism Allah, by name God. And the tafsir of like 3 or 4 lines, so tafsir, i.e. the explanation of a few lines, would take us like 2 to 3 hours, and the time would go like that. And then we would listen to Ahmed al-Ajmi and hear how it's supposed to sound, and it was just a really, really, really nice class. Actually, the first day after the class, we closed the books. I was like, okay, nice. And I don't know for what reason, I went home and I memorized Fatiha that day. So that comes to help me later when one day I learned to pray. But I don't know why. I think I thought it was exotic or something. I learned the Fatiha. But with every class that I kept going and I kept going and I kept going, I realized this is the only thing I'm waiting forward to my entire week. And I loved it. I loved it. It wasn't about let me see what they believe. It was about like, I can't wait to find out what else I believe in. It became about me, and it became about somehow your heart being so convinced that this is the truth. And I was actually a really, really annoying student. Like, I feel so bad for her, but I think now it makes me better in dealing with others about Islam, because I was really annoying with my questions. So I feel like there isn't many things you can ask me that I would be like, I don't know how to take this. Like, I'd be like, aha, okay. You say that there's an angel on both sides and the angels don't come to the bathroom. So what if I murder someone in the bathroom? It doesn't count. So I was like a really, really annoying student, and she was just like, Eden, stop. So actually being this annoying and trying to find something wrong with it was what actually affirmed my faith in the end. Trying to find something wrong with it actually led me down the path of true faith, because I discovered there is nothing wrong with it, subhanallah. So that was that. Every class was the best time of my life. I made great friends. I loved the lessons, and I internalized everything. I would go home. All I wanted to do was live and breathe Islam. But I didn't practice anything. Let's say this was my Quran. I was sitting there nicely, okay? It came time for prayer. Everybody would go, even the other new students, and then me. I was just like, I wait. And then everyone would come back from prayer break, and I was like, okay, let's continue studying the Quran now. So like, it didn't click. Believing and practicing, it didn't go hand in hand for me. I believed, but it was kind of still on the snooze button somewhere. So I started these classes in December 2010. So skip forward to April 2011. That's where we are now with my timeline. And I remember very, very clearly, it was the 10th of April 2011. And I had a pen pal called Matthew from Wales. And we were chatting for like quite a couple of years, I think, and we would just like play Yahtzee online, and I don't know what. And I remember he was Christian, and I would always be like, he was one of those people I was like, really, Christian, and you're normal? That's interesting. You believe? Nice. So he was one of those people that in the beginning of my journey I was convinced that, wow, people of religion can be normal people. I was very surprised. And we would chat and play and like whatever, just we're kids. And so one day he stopped responding to my messages, and I've never met him, obviously. We just chat and play games online. And he didn't respond. And then I texted him like, what's wrong? What's this? What's that? And then I go on his Facebook profile, and I remember it's the 10th of April because it's my mom's birthday. And I'm sitting in the living room floor, and I go on his Facebook, and I watch his entire Facebook feed, and everyone is leaving, rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace, Matthew. And I was like, what? Okay, I have to say this now. I'd never dealt with death in my life until that point. Like, alhamdulillah, I was lucky enough. Nobody in my life died until that point. I didn't know how to deal with it. And honestly, I freaked out. And I remember I went like caps lock and everything. And I was like, what is wrong with you people? And like, how can you do this? How can you say this? This is such a sick joke. And I don't know what. And I was crying. And my mom was seeing me crying. My mom's like, oh my God, what happened? I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. And the first instinct I had was that I have to pray for him. And then my second instinct was, I don't know how to pray. So I remember that from the Quran classes I'm currently attending in the Islamic Center, they gave me like a booklet on how to pray. I opened the booklet up. Okay, I was like, whew, okay, I'm going to be the first Muslim who does not know how to pray. I am the first Muslim who couldn't pray. So I was like, okay, what do I remember? What do I remember? Okay, wudu, you have to clean yourself. At the time, I still had fake nails, long gel nails, and I remember that you can't do wudu, you can't clean yourself for prayer if you have fake nails. And I was like, okay, dear God, sorry, nails, what to do? So I Googled how to do it, and I was following the instructions, like, how to wash, okay. Then like what? Okay, I know we have to cover. Okay, I had like a towel on my head and a robe. And so, okay, I cut the book into sheets and papers, and I put them all around me in a half a circle. And I was praying to God that my mom doesn't come in my room, because if my mom sees me like bowing down somewhere, it's gonna be the end of me. So I put all of it around, and I'm still crying. And okay, what? And you know how standing is one position, ruku', so like half bow is second position, sujood, prostrating is the third position. So the book says, like, let's say Isha prayer, 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 1 1 2 2 2 2, and I was just like, what? I'm gonna be the first Muslim who cannot pray. And okay, so I try and I look and I saw a video. Okay, okay, I got this. So I start, and okay, I read from every single page that's around me. Ashwat. And now I remember, I already know Fatiha. So that was the easy part for me. But everything else, I had no idea what's happening. I was like, okay, Bismillah. Okay, and I did it. And my first prayer took me, can you believe it or not, 25 minutes. But somehow it felt like that. It felt like the quickest prayer in my life. So that was it. I went back to my computer, and I found that Matthew's dad had messaged me and said that Matthew was born with an illness called cystic fibrosis, and they knew from a very young age that he is going to die young. And like I told you before in the story, if I have an instinct and I believe it's the right thing to do, I will do it, and I will not think twice. I booked a plane ticket. I told my mom I need to go, and my mom's always been like this in my life. That's why I love her. Unfortunately, I know I'm never gonna be like that with my own kid. But whenever she saw that I'm convinced with something, she trusted me enough to let me do it if I felt it's the right thing to do. So I went. I arrived like 2 a.m. in the middle of Wales. Never been to Wales. I'm a teenager at the time. I arrived to Wales. It's dark. It's 2 a.m. Never seen Matthew. Never seen his family. Someone is gonna pick me up who's not even from his family. But I did it. For some reason, I had such a strong inclination in my heart that I have to do this. And I arrived, and his family welcomed me like my own. They took me in, and I felt like I'm a celebrity when I arrived there. Everybody knew who I was. There was like 200-300 people, and they all knew who I was. And I was like, oh my God, you're Alain. Oh my God, and I was like, what is happening? And the first time that I ever met Matthew was when he was in his casket. You know, they do open casket funerals, and they asked me if I need a time or like a moment with him on my own. And they just left me in a room with Matthew's dead body in a casket. And that was the most surreal moment in my entire life. I couldn't come to terms first with his death. I couldn't come to terms why he didn't tell me anything, because the last message that he ever sent me was that I need to tell you something. I was a young girl who didn't know how to cope. I had no idea what's happening or what's going on. And the only thing I kept repeating to myself is that his death meant something, his death meant something, his death meant something. It's the day I started to pray, and I'm never gonna give it up. And subhanAllah, I never stopped praying. Till today, I've never missed a prayer. And I don't know when I would have started practicing Islam if it wasn't for this. It's so crazy. So his parents welcomed me. I slept in the morning. It was the funeral. The mom said she's not going to go to the funeral. She can't bury her own son. I've never cried like that in my life. You know, when you see somebody else's sorrow, it can internalize, and it was the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. And we entered the church for the funeral, me and the mom and the dad. Can you believe it? We've never met. They don't know who I am, anything. And it's the three of us holding hands walking to the funeral, and we've never... Who am I? You know, like, who am I? And I've never cried like that in my whole life. And every time I would have a free break, I carried something with me, and I would try to pray, again with my papers and my booklet and everything. And I took prayers slowly. First I took 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then Fajr came later. But that was the day I started. And so I came back. I remember I told everyone in the Islamic Center, like, I was holding very deep conversations, how, like, oh my God, everything you taught. I told my teacher that, oh my God, everything you taught me, how you're never supposed to take tomorrow for granted, and don't go to sleep expecting that you're going to wake up in the morning, and don't wake up in the morning expecting to return to bed in the night. You never know what's tomorrow. And that really, really, really shook me. And my teacher was like, yes, that's why you need to act. Are you ready to take your shahada? And I was like, oh, no. So she's like, can you write me a short story about your story with Islam so I can put it on our local website? And I was like, okay, fine. And I wrote together a draft. And my last sentence was, inshallah, one day I'm going to be a good Muslim. And she messaged me back. She's like, what do you mean one day you're going to be a good Muslim? And I was like, I'm not one now. And she's like, oh, sweetheart, as soon as you believe in La ilaha illallah, it means that you're Muslim. I was like, what? So I remember, like, even though it was all happening, I had never for a split second thought of myself as a Muslim. And I was like, oh my God, then I was freaking out, because no one in my family doesn't even know I'm investigating anything. Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christian, anything. They don't know anything. And I'm going to be like, greetings, people. I'm Muslim now. So I was like, oh my God, I was freaking out. For the next couple of months, I remember I was consciously trying to leave signs for my mom that at least I believe in something. Like, oh mother, I attended this conference, and oh mother, have you ever contemplated over life and death? And oh mother, I think there's a higher creator. It doesn't make sense. Like, I would always start leaving little hints and clues, because I was like, oh my God, they're gonna think I lost my mind. So anyway, and then again, she's like, are you ready to take your shahada? And I'm like, no, everything for me started in Egypt. I want to do it in Egypt. And she's like, sweetheart, you are the one who just witnessed that there might not be a tomorrow. Are you willing to take that risk and wait? You don't know when you're going to go again. And then she's like, I want to do something. I want to take a group shahada, so all the girls in the class get the chance to do this together. So I was like, wow, that's something really, really unique, especially for a country like Estonia, when we're only 1 million people and nobody's Muslim. So yeah, that's it. I said okay. And the 14th of May 2011, we took our shahada. We were 12 girls and 1 boy. Everyone in a row. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Everyone was crying. Everyone was, of course, like, Allahu Akbar. And it was just a crazy day. Like, I remember all those girls. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember also not having anyone to share it with. I went home like it was any other day. Couldn't show my happiness. Couldn't show my excitement. But inside of me, I was like, oh my God, I'm Muslim now. And I remember a few months after I'd taken my shahada, it was Ramadan. Ramadan in Estonia at the time, sunset was 10:45 p.m. and time for the dawn prayer, which is when you have to start fasting, was at 2. So I thought I'm gonna be the first Muslim who cannot fast. But subhanAllah, actually, I asked for my same teacher to give me a class or like a lecture on what is Ramadan and how to behave in Ramadan. And it was actually very, very helpful. And despite the extremely long hours, I think it was one of the easiest Ramadans that I've ever had. But of course, I was fasting in secret. And it was hard, but I didn't feel the hardship at the time. I've been Muslim for 7 years. And I've never felt the way I felt back then. Yes, it was hard and life was a struggle and I didn't belong anywhere and didn't have any friends and my family didn't know. I was Muslim for secret for years. For years I would pray in secret, fast in secret, alone, always alone. But at that time your Islam is so strong, it's like your drug, if I can explain it that way. You're so high on it, you're oblivious to everything that is a hardship because of it. And that time, unfortunately, it does not last, but it's a very, very beautiful time. So if you're in it now, make the most out of it because it shall pass. But it was an amazing time. You feel like you finally found your purpose. You feel like you were blind, but now you can see. You feel like everything is okay in the end of the day. Your life has meaning. Your life has purpose. There's someone by your side. There's someone to turn to. There's a bigger picture. There's a reason for everything. So you have this inner peace, and this inner peace and light is what I wish for every person in the world. And it would so often make me sad to think that there are people who don't have it. It doesn't have to be Islam that gives it to you, but I just wish that you have it. It's such a beautiful feeling to find your purpose in life. So yeah, alhamdulillah. And I remember like in university, some exchange students would be Muslims. And for me now, it's something that I identify myself as. And I would see like Kuwaitis and I don't know what. And I would walk up to them and be like, hello, I'm also Muslim. So people would be like, okay, good for you. It was always hard with the people who knew you before Islam. The new people in your life, they don't know you any other way. So it was a lot easier. So it was a lot easier for me to have a new environment. And then from moment one, I kind of tried to make the people who became close to me know that I'm Muslim right away, so they can either decide they want to be my friend or they don't. And I remember I would design my university schedules according to prayer. I would run out between classes, make wudu somewhere, take the tram, pray in a clothing store, like fitting room. But I would make it happen. In this time, you're oblivious to the hardship kind of because you're just so happy and so blessed and so excited to be Muslim. Alhamdulillah, God makes the hardship kind of fade away. Hardship comes after because we all know we're going to be tested with that which we love most, and if God grants you such an amazing gift, of course He will make sure that you earn it and deserve it. I finished university, I studied to be an English teacher, and I realized if I want to make it for myself, I cannot stay where I am. A teacher's salary is too low. I'm not married, my family is not Muslim. I have to provide for myself and I can't do it here. How am I ever going to have a community? How am I ever going to feel like I belong? How am I ever going to wear the hijab? All of these questions in my life. So I was determined to change my life, and I did, but it came at a price. And it was, to get to where I am today was the most difficult, it was the most difficult journey I've ever embarked in my life. I ended up in Ghana, in Singapore, in Morocco, in Holland, till I finally reached Qatar, where I live now, and we're happily married, alhamdulillah. That was such a roller coaster, and it's a completely different story. So inshallah, I will share that with you in episode 2. And but yes, truly, Islam is the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm still so shocked till today that God chose me out of all the people in the world. And it is a blessing, and inshallah we never take it for granted. And I hope you liked my story, and I hope you found something beneficial in it. And yeah, wishing you lots of peace and love, and see you soon. Bye. Assalamu alaikum. Mwah.